What is going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to another video, and I am here in my absolutely stunning apartment on the Gold Coast. Let's just show you outside. It's nice. A little bit cloudier than I would have liked, but it's hailing in Melbourne, so at least it's better than there. It has been a while since we followed this format, guys, but today I want to return to one of the classics, and that is my monthly favorites. This is where basically I give you guys a quick overview of a couple of different things that have been working well for me recently. One in the world and paradigm of training itself, one in the world of nutrition, and one in the world of kind of general life hacks and recovery. Getting straight into it then with training, I've spoken a lot over the last couple of months about doing strength EMOMs at the beginning of your session. I think the speed at which we recover between strength lifts, that is lifts anywhere between, realistically, if you're doing a 1 rep max, that's rare for me, but anywhere between 1 rep and like 5 or 6. So I think if it takes you between 15 and 20 seconds to do your set, you've got between 40 and 45 to recover. That is gonna feel hellish and nowhere near enough time in the early stages, but you do get used to it very, very, very quickly. So maybe a 3% loss in total performance output for saving 3 times the amount of time. That's a trade I'm absolutely willing to make. But today, the training hack of my monthly favorites is not strength EMOMs, because we've covered that before. It's actually a slight tweak on that, and it's something called Hypertrophy Clusters. This is a training approach I got introduced to through Ben Simons, who heard it from, I think kind of a buddy of his, Jake Chura, who's like an S&C coach and specifically kind of like a tendon rehab, tendon prehab jumps coach. And basically he says, if you kind of take the classic, which is 4 sets of 10, if you change this into 8 sets of 5 with 60 seconds break between the second that you finish the last rep of 1 set and the second that you start the reps, it's basically a forced 60-second break between. He believes that's kind of the perfect middle ground, the Shangri-La that we're all searching for, which is what perfectly develops both maximal strength and elicits like a hypertrophic, like a muscle building benefit. So instead of just doing like sets of 2 with 5 minutes break and then doing some pump sets at the end, is there something we can do where we basically get both benefits, both adaptations within the same set? And Jake Chura thinks that this is the case. I actually did this a couple of years ago during lockdown, but I've just kind of gone back to it now. It gives me a little bit more break, and that 60-second break probably wouldn't be enough for most people, and you have to develop your body's ability to recover quicker, so that 60 seconds was enough. But because I've been doing strength EMOMs on and off for the last few months, where sometimes I'm only getting like 40 seconds break, the fact that I get a forced 60-second rest, like for me, it feels like it just gives me that extra little bit of recovery to actually push up to a slightly higher percentage. So Hypertrophy Clusters, 8 sets of 5 with a forced 60-second break between basically when you rack the bar after a set and then when you start the rep of the next set. Again, you get a massive strength benefit, you get an incredible hypertrophy benefit. That's a lot of flipping volume, 8 sets of 5, but because you're staying strict to the rest, I genuinely believe it is single-handedly the lowest hanging fruit for so many people for a short recovery. You're gonna get stronger, you're gonna get bigger, you're gonna get a little bit leaner by the fact that it's fairly metabolic because the rest is quite short, so it kind of ticks, and you're just saving flipping time over the course of the session and the amount of training work that you have to put in the week. Hypertrophy Clusters, tick. That is the training section done. On to nutrition. Okay, so onto the nutrition component, guys, and I'm gonna talk about coffee, and specifically coffee in the PM. I'm a big fan of coffee, as anyone who has ever met me will probably testify, because I was probably drinking it at the time. But what I have done over the last couple of years is become a little bit more aware of my overall caffeine intake and some of the deleterious side effects of basically having too much. And for anyone who's ever had coffee or energy drinks or anything, you'll be aware of how quickly you basically desensitize to the effects of caffeine, which means the benefit that you get kind of cognitively and energetically from having a single espresso in the morning at 11 a.m. every day is going to down-regulate fairly quickly, which means to get the same kind of like subjective self-reported benefit, you're going to start needing to have more and more and more and more and more. So caffeine is one of those substances where that kind of desensitization happens very quickly. That's why people who start on 1 espresso in the morning don't just stay on that for 10 years, because they're chasing the same experience, they're hoping and expecting for the same experience, they need more and more and more. So what I want to do specifically after about 2 p.m. is limit the amount of caffeine that I have, and basically kind of eradicate that after 2 o'clock. But considering I train kind of mid to late afternoon, if I want something to perk me up, one of the things that is helping with both energy but staying a little bit more regulated and kind of giving me a little bit of a pump and a perk up for training is basically just replacing my any afternoon coffee with a fairly generous portion of amino acids. If you can get a supplement that is both BCAA, so branched chain amino acids, and EAAs, essential amino acids, it's got everything in it like L-tyrosine, which is really, really good for focus. It's a different kind of perk up to caffeine, but for me personally, if I have too much coffee, I feel jittery and kind of strangely tired but wired. I can't even string a flipping sentence together. Like it just feels really bizarre to me. It almost has the opposite effect of what it should do. So what I've done recently, and this is very recent for me actually, this is literally the last week, is just replace any caffeine. Like when I would normally be drinking coffee in the afternoon, all I do is replace it with a fairly generous portion of BCAAs and EAAs. And it really does have an effect on your cognition. Flipping heck, I just feel awake. I feel clear, but in a much more regulated way than when you get kind of like a caffeine spike. I still do drink coffee in the morning and I still do enjoy the whole experience of that. It's like a foundational flipping pillar of my day. I'm just trying to limit the caffeine intake and find a nice level which I can just sustain. Adenosine system regulated, caffeine out in the afternoon, amino acids in, tick. And the third and final one, which is basically around kind of lifestyle and recovery hacks to just maintain, feeling good, feeling mobile, feeling energetic and feeling awake, is I always go for a walk in the most of the time. I'll be honest, 90% of the time I would say I go for a walk between 10 and 15 minutes kind of every morning just to get a little bit of sunlight on my skin, on my eyes. For those of you that watch my morning routine video with the thumbnail that looks like this, you will see in there that I massively advocate getting access to sunlight within the first kind of 30 minutes of being awake. It really helps your circadian rhythms, it's awesome. But an extension of that, one of the things that's actually started to help me is getting a little bit of blood pumping, getting a little bit of a sweat on, and getting my respiratory system working for about 10 to 15 minutes. I'm not gonna run when I feel that brittle when I've just got out of bed. For me, that will just not work. Being as kind of naturally as elastic as I am, I'm gonna be waddling down and my Achilles are gonna be flipping screaming at me. But what I have actually done, this is really strange, is almost start rucking. Put a rucksack on, put about 10 kilos of books, flipping water bottles, weight plates, whatever. Or if you've got a weight vest, chuck that on or chuck that in there. And then basically just go for like a really quick, almost like speed march pace walk for about 10 to 15 minutes. I'm not doing it to put myself in a calorie deficit. I'm not doing it to get leaner. I'm not doing it because I'm gonna get a huge kind of cardiovascular benefit from that particular training stimulus. For me, I'm not looking at it as a training stimulus. It's just been so amazing at basically just making the next 2 hours after that just so much more productive. It is like a little bit of a drug. If you combine a little bit of cold water immersion, which I do every day anyway, but I want to keep these vlogs for you nice and fresh. But if you can combine your morning walk and getting as much sunlight on your skin as possible with actually spiking the heart rate a little bit, and it doesn't have to be going for a weighted walk. It can be running if that works for you. It can be bike as long as you've got sunlight on you. But I just think 10 to 15 minutes are literally like zone 2 pace even, with maybe the last kind of like 2 minutes a little bit quicker, spiking that heart rate up to about 160 for the last 2 minutes. For me, it has worked incredibly well with feeling really, really, really good. I feel much more mobile throughout the day, just getting kind of blood pumping that early. I would say the speed of my cognition and my mental acuity has just been up leveled by about 15 to 20%, just by virtue of the fact that everything's flushing around the pipes a little bit quicker. So there we have it, beautiful people, nice and snappy today. Hypertrophy clusters for training, switch out the coffee in the afternoon, replace with amino acids for nutrition, a 10 to 15 minute kind of like zone 2 up to zone 3, 4 cardio session in the morning. You need to get some sunlight on you anyway. You might as well spike your heart rate during that process. Not enough to cause any injuries, but just enough to flush everything through the body, get a flipping dump of endorphins, and your cognition will be better for the whole morning. Hope you enjoyed that as always, guys. If you did, please do smash that like button. It only takes 2 seconds for you, but it's incredibly beneficial for me and the channel. If you have not yet done so, make sure you subscribe for hybrid athletes, functional bodybuilders, people prepping for the military, anyone who loves a little bit of outdoor adventure, and for anyone who's just a general fitness enthusiast that likes learning more about the human body and the way in which we're wired. Lots of awesome content coming for all of you. And as always, team, stay strong, stay healthy, stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next video.